Can't think of that other young guy. I can't think of it. Robert Earl. Robert Earl, I can't think of his last name. Them boys could run backwards. But see, them boys, they learn how to run in a sand pit. So when they hit solid ground,
they gone.
They gone. They gone. Yeah, they took their training in the sand pit. I wasn't no match for none of them guys. They'd be running backwards looking at me and going faster than I could go forward.
You know, we had some Thomases in free soil.
That's all the same family.
All the same family.
Yeah, James Thomas is there. Yeah, in free soil. Matter of fact, Caroline Thomas.
Yep.
She was named James Thomas.
Yes.
They just took her ashes up there last week.
She was a Thomas.
Yeah. They just took her ashes up there and buried them in the cemetery.
You know what? They told me so. Diane told me something about that. So they did with that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know about it. My son Tony, my oldest son, he grew up there in Wellston.
Okay.
He grew up with the Thomases and all them folks on Baker Road.
Okay.
And he called me and said, Dad, we just took Caroline's ashes up there. I said, well, I wish I'd have known that. I went up there with you. He said, Dad, I forgot. I didn't call you to let you know we was going up there. But yeah, they just took her ashes up there. Last week, I think it was.
Yeah, I thought it was recent.
Yeah.
So now the time when you got out of school and some of your buddies went to the Army or so the services.
Military.
And you didn't go. What happened around that now?
Well, my mother didn't want me to go to the military because all my other brothers had been to the military. And they all came home.
Okay.
And she said, no,
you're not going.
You're not going. You ain't going. You ain't going. So she somehow got to Dr. Nelson.
Dr. Nelson, I remember him.
And I guess she told him she didn't want me to go to the military. So that's where they sent me to take my military physical.
Right.
I sat in doctor's office, out in the office part there. And he finally came out and looked at me and said, I'm this. He said, well, your mama don't want you to go to the military, do you? I said, what? He said, well, that's all right. He said, you can go home. Everything's taken care of.
Really?
Yeah. And the next couple of weeks, I got my classification from the school. I was classified a 4F a student in high school. 4F.
4F, so you couldn't go?
No, I couldn't go. That stuck with me for years. I did have a memory heart, but he didn't test me to find a memory heart. And I found out I had a memory heart, and I lost a lot of jobs by telling folks I had a memory heart.
Yes.
When I went to Chicago, I went to the U.S. Parcel. I had a job there, and they said, well, what's your doctor record like? I said, well, I got a memory heart. They said, well, no, we can't use you. And I went to somewhere else, I can't remember. Oh, I got hired at the post office, and I got hired at Western Union at the same time.
Yes.
So I choose Western Union rather than the post office, but I'm sorry today I made that mistake. Cause if I had kept the post office, I could have been located here anywhere else. But I didn't realize at that time. I just did. They had me lugging big packages and things at the post office. I didn't want to be doing no lugging, no heavy stuff. Because I worked at the post office in Chicago during Christmas time, and I know what it was like at that post office.
Yes,
And I said I didn't want to get hooked up on that. But I'm sorry today I didn't go to the post office because I could have been, I could have retired from around here in the post office. But that's what happened to me. That's why I got classified 4F. And I didn't realize that until I went to play football.
Okay.
And they said, no, we got your classification and you got a leaky heart. I said, a leaky heart? I ain't know nothing about no leaky heart. So, well, that's what Dr. Nelson said, you got a leaky heart.
All because your mom didn't want you going to the military. That's why that happened.
I did have a murmur of heart, but it wasn't that serious. Why I couldn't play football because I played all sports around the school. I didn't play basketball or nothing, but I played baseball and all that stuff. But they wouldn't let me go out on the football team. I ran track and everything, but I couldn't play football.
But that's why everybody else went out to the military and stuff, and you didn't go.
Allen,
White,
Joe Brooks, Leonard White, Alan Turner, Herman Kinslow.
Was you sad about that, or was
yes.
Okay, because you wanted to go.
Yeah, because those guys got experience that I didn't get.
Yes,
being away from home and the training they got a lot more experience that I think it made them a stronger person.
Yes. Yes.
And I think I would have been a lot stronger person. But no, Mom didn't want her baby going to no military.
Sometimes the mom does stop things from happening in our life, and God has His own course.
She had all her other sons to go, and they came back home, so she didn't want me to go because I was the last one. Because Jesse was in the Marines, and Otis was in the Army, Rochester was in the Army, and my brother Herman was in the Army. All of them served in the military. Herman was in 1942.
Wow.
Yeah, he was there he was in the Red Ball Express.
Okay.
Yeah, he was part of the Red Ball Express. Because he mentioned when that movie came out, he said, ain't nowhere in the world they can keep the black out of that.
Yes.
Because the black was burning all that ammunition material up to the front line. And they had this song, lift that load, one for the Army and one for the road. No, one for Hitler and one for the road. Yeah, he said, ain't nowhere in the world they could keep the black out of that movie because the black was the one running the material back and forth up to the front line.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So here it is. Okay, so you're in around that time. Let's go back to the time where Ottawa was booming. Ottawa was booming, and there was the Flamingo. And there was the Paradise Island. What can you tell me about those things?
Well, the Paradise Island, Paradise Club, brother.
Okay, Paradise Club. Okay, Club. Yes.
Yeah, it was nice. It had Bill Doggy. He had his folks come in on the bus, and the Four Tops appeared there.
Four Tops. You seen them?
Yeah, I seen them. They were regular people. They were regular people. You know, they didn't act like stars or nothing. They was amongst the fellas, and they was fellas. You know.
Okay.
You get out there talking Big Maybell. And all of those folks, they were regular folks there, you know. I met Goose Tatum.
Okay.
He was his girlfriend worked at the Flamingo. Yeah, she was a shake dancer.
Okay.
Lottie the Body.
Lottie the Body.
Yeah, that was Goose Tatum's family. He had a big red Cadillac. Yeah. And I met him, you know, and folks like that. But they were regular folks, and I can't think of this other guy that played with the Globetrotters. He was a star on the Globetrotters too. I can't think of his name, but he ran with Goose all the time.
Okay.
Him and Goose came up here together. Yeah.
Now, how did you meet these people? I mean, you wasn't too young to go into Flamingo. You was like
No. I was married and had kids.
You was married and had kids.
Yeah. So
young.
I worked at Paradise Club, parking cars at Paradise Club.
Parking cars, okay.
Yeah, and when I wasn't working, I'd go to the Flamingo and sit at the table with my wife, because she was a waitress there.
She was a waitress there.
Yeah, and she got to know a lot of the folks there and everything. And and after we left the Flamingo, we went to Club El Morocco. And that's where all the stars and all the show people would sit after hours, releasing that energy that they spit out there on the floor dancing and singing. They would come there and release, and we would just get together, and it was just like, they were just like folks like me and you sitting there.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't have big heads or anything?
No big heads at all. None at all. No, them folks were just as friendly. And matter of fact, one of the guys that played in band at Flamingo Club, I ran into him one year. I was in Chicago. I was going out with some friends of mine in Chicago, and we was going to the Just Me Lounge out on the south side.
Okay,
I can't remember what street it was, but the name was Just Me Lounge. And this friend of mine, her name was Jessie, and we keep in touch right now because we didn't date or nothing, but I liked her, but she said, well, you know, we too close. So I let it go at that.
Yeah.
Because we were friends, and I knew her mother and everything. And a lot of times when I go to Chicago now, if I don't have no place to call, I call Jess. I'm just in town. Can you put me out? Yeah.
Still around.
Come on you. Got a bed for you. And I still go by there. And I talked to her a couple of nights ago, matter of fact.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So she's 80-something too then.
Yeah, she's got to be up there. She got to be up. She took me down south. I'd never been to Mississippi before. She took me down south because her father was down there. And he was coming up to her daughter's. Her daughter was having a recital or something, and he was coming up to her, and at that time, Miss Corley, I don't know whether you had know Miss Corley.
I heard of the name.
She stayed right across the street, and she had a Buick, a white Buick, and I had another car, and she practically gave me that car because she was real close.
Okay.
She was real close, and she practically gave me that car. So I told Jess, I said, well, look here, I ain't never been south. I said, why don't we go and pick your father up and bring her? She said, you want to do that? I said, yeah. So we took off. I drove down to Mississippi and picked him up. And she took me all around. She got a bunch of sisters and brothers down there and her father and everything. And we brought him back to Chicago.
Now, now, how did you, back then they didn't have GPS. Did you know your way? I mean, did she know your way? Did you have a map?
She knew her way.
Okay.
She knew her way.
She knew her way down to Mississippi.
We got to Jackson, and she had folks in Jackson. We stopped there and talked. And then we went a little further down. I can't think of the little town because he was a barber down there.
Okay.
And we went down there and we picked him up and brought him back to Chicago, and he stayed a while. And I think she put him on an airplane or a train and sent him back because we didn't take him back down there.
Okay.
But that was my first time down there. And then I went south again with a friend of mine named Eddie Johnson. He was raised up here. He was one of my running buddies when I was young. It was me and Eddie and Gus. They stayed in Bush Lake and I stayed up in Weber.
Okay.
And I was the oldest of the bunch. And every time I go to pick up Eddie, his mother said, yeah, y'all mind Martin because he's the oldest. It was okay until we left the house. You better not tell us what to do. Because they were both bigger than me.
They were both bigger than you.
Yeah,
You were just older, but they were bigger.
Yeah. But and then I moved to, Eddie moved to Chicago first. Then Gus moved to Chicago, and then I moved to Chicago, and we got together in Chicago. And we used to roller skate here at Polk Skate Rink and Hook Skate Rink, and we did the same thing in Chicago.
That's
we
amazing.
did the same thing in Chicago.
So let's go back to you were married at a young age. So what age did you get married that your wife was working at one club, you was working at the other?
21.
21. And you just made that decision because you was in love. Okay. You're saying it like, oh my goodness, you should have waited.
I should have.
Okay.
I should have.
All right, but still,
who we mortals be.
Yeah. Yes. But so you saw a lot of the stars.
Yeah. Well, I met my wife here.
Okay.
She was staying up there behind what they call Reese's store, Miss Nelson's store.
Yeah.
She was staying up there, and her brother Lucius, he had a little stand. It was maybe not as big as that garage.
Okay.
And he was an entertainer. He used to have all the kids up there, and he had records and things playing, and have the kids dancing and everything.
Okay.
And I met her up there, and me and Eddie was together, and he met another girl that was from Chicago. And they stayed on Baldwin Road right there at the corner of, I can't think of the name of the street there, but they stayed on Baldwin Road, and he met her. And we hooked up together, and Dolores went back to Chicago, and I went to Chicago. And she came to Chicago later on, and we hooked up together again, and that's when we got together and started messing around, and we got married.